Good evening and welcome along to another episode of the Blues Brothers podcast, the alternative Rangers podcast. Now, love is in the air, Valentine's Day this week, so I thought we'd start off this week's intro with a poem. Biggest week of the season so far. Our recovery has been nothing short of bizarre. From Russell Martin and all things woke, in Danny Rule, we have found a top bloke. So Motherwell and Hearts lies ahead. Let's ensure our title hopes are anything but dead. Battle fever commences and 2 wins needed, then natural order restored, mission completed. Joining me to discuss all that and more, my very good friend, Mr. Ross Clark. Ross, how are we, mate?
I'm good, mate. I'm good. Cole's man's birthday today, so just rushed in from there. Apart from that, mate, it's all quiet. How are you getting on?
I'm doing all right, mate. I'm getting no bad. As you see, there's still no colour in my complexion, but apart from that, I've probably had a better last 24 hours than I've had the last few weeks. So hopefully that's a sign of things to come, mate. But probably infused as I was over the weekend with us winning 8-0, mate. What was your thoughts on the performance against Queen's Park? Very professional, mate, and good to get that amount of goals and the new guys involved also.
Thought it was really professional, Davie. What we asked for last week, wasn't it, to get a team of guys that needed minutes. Good to see the 4 new signings start. Also good to see them all taking a place. That's what we wanted. Big Nadiri coming into the team rather and scoring a couple of goals. Scott Olsen looking a bit sharper with every minute he gets on the park. Chukwani looking like exactly what we thought we needed in that sort of 8 position. And Tour Romans continues to be the best left back since Roberto Carlos.
Well, I'm glad I nailed my colours to the mast early on that one. I know JD was giving me a bit of stick on Twitter during the week saying you've went too early, but I don't think I have went too early on that, boy, mate. An interesting place to start, mate, I suppose, would be our opposition for the Mora night, I think. And we can maybe look back to going forward. We will touch on things and aspects for the game, but I think the Mora night is just so big in terms of where our season started to where it is now and where it could potentially go. I look at Motherwell, mate, and as the statos will tell you, they've not lost a goal at home since 4 days before Danny Rule was appointed. So that's quite a considerable home record and a formidable defensive home record at the game, especially when they've got dumplings in the back like Stephen O'Donnell and McGinn. But I look at the way they play, and they've obviously got repetitive patterns under their manager. I think, as you see, when they play the 2 centre halves, they split and the fullbacks go wide, and you see that their pivot comes in top, and it's almost like they've got this diamond shape in the midfield, and they look to drop in, turn the ball quickly so that they've got their runners in behind. So it's sort of like touch, move, hit the ball in behind, right? So I think with the introduction of our new signings, and us being aggressive for a change, this influences how I want to play the Mora. So I'd be looking to play 4-2-3-1. I want somebody in the 10, 2 wide, and I probably want the pairing of Chukwani and Diamande in the middle, because I want, when Motherwell are building out for the back like that, I want 5 on top of them, looking to turn over the ball quickly and make them face the rain goal, because I think we've been too passive as the seasons went on so far, and Danny Rule's used that to his advantage in games, trying to sort of get us into games and you know, backs against the wall performances. But see, now we've got players in the team that can hurt teams, so let's be the aggressor. There's a title there to win, and there's a game there to win the Mora night. Go and win it.
I agree with you, mate. I thought it was interesting at the weekend to see him gone with the 2 up front that I've been hearing about on other pods and reading about, with this kind of Red Bull style 4-2-2-2 type formation. So it was good to see that in the flesh at the weekend. I'm similar to you. I would like to go 4-2-3-1, but with no Ant-Man, no Gassama, with Chermiti playing on the left side of that, Moore in one, and then Scott Olsen, and that gives you the ability to flick between your 4-2-2-2 and your 4-2-3-1. where you can have Chamite going up to join to make that a front two, and Moore can then slide out. I totally agree with you, mate. And as we said in here last week, for me, it's Diamande and Chukwani at the moment. Raskin, as we've spoke about, doesn't have the tactical nous or doesn't play the position the way I think we need to play it tomorrow night. We're not going to need somebody to drop back into the back two to make it a 3. I think we need somebody that's going to be disciplined and pressing very often, wanting to be on the front foot. So I totally agree with you there. And I know that there's a bit of backlash online when you dare question Raskin's place in the team. He's still very much a fan favourite, but for me, the good of the team comes first. And I think at the moment it's Chukwani and Diamandi's positions to lose. If you drop out Moore for the 10 and play with a flat 3, then Raskin comes in then. But I would like us to go and impose ourselves on the game as opposed to trying to counter Motherwell. So Chamiti on the left, as we've seen in the Old Firm game, where the second goalie cuts in for there. My worry with Gassama, Davie, and we've touched on this a few times, is if you've got a player like Tour Romans who's going to be going up and down the left wing, looking to play intricate passes and triangles and break free, Gassama's far too greedy for me. He doesn't release the ball quick enough. He doesn't hold the ball up well enough. Ant-Man has shown that he is decent and they seem to have a good link-up. I would really like to see Chamiti out there and give him the ability and the height and the physicality, but also for him to be able to do his pressing, but also not be expected to be in the box at the same time, which is where, as I've spoke about on here, I think that's been Chamiti's main drawback, is the fact he's been expected to, Butland kicks it in a big diagonal, he's to be out wide, holding it up, laying the ball off, and then still be in the box when he lays it back to the guy that's crossing it. So maybe Nadiri playing through the middle and Chamiti then being able to play off of the left and coming in and join when he has to, but also being able to take it wide and then play back in, because Tour Romans looks as if he'll come on the inside if the outside's not on. I really think that could be an issue where Gassama's link up, bringing others into play, unselfishness is what could cause us issues and maybe could end up marking Tour Romans out the game, our own player. By the way, shout out to Blair Malloy, who I actually criticised for saying Gassama is maybe your impact sub for the moment because we never had anybody else that could play there at the time. But now I'm of that same opinion, mate, that if this boy Tour Romans is going to offer you what he has offered you, you need somebody that's going to be willing to go and play and interlink with him, as opposed to somebody who wants to get it and their first thought is just to run inside and shoot.
Well, it's an interesting point, and it alludes to what you were talking about. We're asking, it's evolution of the team. The team's progressing and moving forward, and how Raskin fits into a team. Raskin likes to be playing in a side that does their best work behind the ball and off the ball, and playing teams that are under pressure and, as you say, drop in and make a 3, almost similar to the way John Lundstrom played in a Clermont or Gio side. Whereas now we are looking to be more aggressive and go and win games and score goals. We've spent considerable money, and I'm not sure. I mean, you touch on a great point, and I think the best way to analyse your point or take it a step further in regards to Raskin's position is, see when he was involved at Easter Road and he started sort of dribbling the ball or moving forward with the ball, in and out of the ball, I don't think he picks the right pass, mate. As you say, he's just not got that confidence or awareness. And I get at Parkhead, he dribbled one on and then it cut it back and it was a goal for Chamiti, but it doesn't happen as often as what you would like. I just think that the flow in terms of moving the ball forward, moving the ball quickly, triangles of play, and I'm not trying to get too overly tactical, but if you're getting Romans starting with the ball, he's looking to move it inside to Diamandi. He's then looking to hit the winger and come in the inside of him or go on the outside of him if the winger's coming inside. So we look far more aggressive. And if we're looking to sort of pen Motherwell in when they're knocking about the ball for the back, I just think you need players who are more comfortable in that position, where I think Raskin likes to be that wee bit deeper. And I know a lot of people online are talking about playing the flat three like we did at Parkhead, but Motherwell aren't the same level as Celtic in terms of, you know, quality or calibre of players. They're having a good season and they're playing under a good manager. But we are Rangers ultimately at the end of the day, and we've got to remember who we are. Let's impose ourselves upon the opposition, because we shouldn't fear going to Fir Park as much as they're having a good season and they've got a formidable home record this season, especially defensively. There is nothing to fear. We must impose ourselves now.
I totally agree with you. I was watching I said the same every week on here, and I was watching and then dig apart for another point. But Chris Bett on Four Lads the other day was getting a bit of criticism based on what he was saying, and I totally agree with him. He was talking about in 2 games' time we need to be aiming to be top of the league, and people were saying, no, it's 1 game at a time, just think about the next game. And I totally agree with him. See when you know that in 2 games you can get there, then you've got to start looking ahead and saying, well, let's win that one and then we'll go and win that one. I can buy into that now. You've got to have a vision. You've got to now be looking at where you want to get to. It's not just a case of closing the gap and hoping something happens. It's not a case of trying not to get beaten, hoping that others stumble. You've got a chance to go and impose yourself on 2 games and set the marker to go and be top of the league after the 2 games. So for me, that he's right in what he's saying. That does change the mentality. You're not just going and hoping to sit in and steal one. Now you need to be going and hoping to win the next 2 games. And that's a shift in mentality. And it's a shift in mentality that we as a club over the last, since we won the league essentially, we don't react well when we are expected to go and win and when we are pressure on us to go and win. So this is a really big week and a really big next 4 fixtures for us, Davie. But the best way for us to do that is to get out and go after teams. And I hope that we start that as of tomorrow.
What about Paul's point? Because it's an interesting point while we're speaking about the team in general, about who plays right back. The more obviously Tav got his hat trick at the weekend, mate, and a first career hat trick. You would, I could have swore that there was a time gone by where he would have scored one, but that is quite incredible. However, his record, as we spoke about last week and the previous weeks, is phenomenal in terms of goals for open play, goals for free kicks, goals for penalties. Tremendous servant. Sterling played 45 minutes and the manager said post-match he was definitely going to play Sterling against Hearts, but he's not sure now sort of how he's going to take that go forward. Would you start Tav tomorrow, mate, or would you start Sterling at right back?
Start Sterling at right back, mate.
What's the reason for that,
Ross? Even at the weekend, early doors, we got away with the offside goal there because a boy for the championship just walks by Tav. For me, Motherwell are going to try and draw us in, as you say, they're going to play through the middle of the park and then try and hook it long into corners. So you've got Manmanise. Manmanise can play equally as good after the right or the left, and he can finish. For me, if I was Manmanise and I'm James Tavernier's playing right back, I'm just peeling out of that side, mate, and going 1-on-1 against him. I think he's a weak link in this. We're now talking about the amount of players we've got in the final third, where you like say your Scove Olsons, where your Mikey Moores, Gassama if he doesn't play Charmiti and Nadiri, we've got enough up there. We need to keep the back door shut. And for me, your best option of keeping the back door shut for a defensive fullback is Dujon Sterling. And I would argue potentially right back, if you're looking for somebody to keep the door shut, Aarons is possibly a 50-50 flip of a coin where you would play him before Tav if you're just looking for somebody to hold your defensive shape and defend 1-on-1 against a pacey attacker.
Now, Bobby's obviously talking about here that there's so much depth now in the team with the new players that were signed. And one of the new players that we have signed, mate, is Ryan Nadiri. And he did get his first couple of goals at the weekend. So that's 2 goals in 2 appearances now for him. Do you like the look of this boy? Is he an old-fashioned throwback penalty box striker? And with him in the team, mate, does it actually help our wide players in the sense that when Chermiti and Miovski play as the single man up front, they look to drop deep and come and receive the ball and almost link the play and then look to spin in behind. Whereas this boy will just stay up and give them something to hit. And as you see, how many cross balls did we have? And I get that the opposition was Queen's Park on Sunday, and with all due respect, we have to sort of take that in its stride. But there's just a look at this boy where you think, nah, there's definitely something there, eh?
Well, to quote Ali McCoy, the goals don't change size. So it doesn't matter if you're playing against Queen's Park or if you're playing in the German 3rd Division or if you're playing in the SPFL. The goals don't change size. The box doesn't change size. What really impressed me at the weekend was his movement. A couple of times in the 2 games he's played, he makes a really intelligent run across the front post, and the twice he's got onto it, one he put by the post and one he put just over the bar. And to me, with 2 Romans, that's the kind of striker we need, who's going to be between the posts, but willing to get and athletic enough and physical enough to get across a centre back. And once the connections start building, he'll time his runs a bit better so that he's coming onto the ball rather than diving into it. The other players will realise where he's going to be. There's actually a couple of times where him diving to the front post freed up. I think twice or 3 times it was Diamande, but once or twice Chukwani, who could then take up a position on the penalty spot for a cutback. Skov Olsen was in there for his goal against Kilmarnock as well. So having that player who's going to drag 2 centre-halves out of position in the box because he's cutting across and in between them is going to free up space for other players. So really, for me, the ball's in our court now as to how we want to set up round about that big guy. But you've got to play him. You've went and spent a lot of money. You've put an extra £2 million down on him to get him now rather than wait until the summer. So to me, that's a big intent for Danny Rule to say that he wants to get that £2 million worth out of him, and he thinks that we can recoup that, and the way we're going to recoup that is by winning the league. So I think he's going to be your main man. I think he's going to be your main man going forward. And as I say, potentially for me, that's where Chermiti becomes your kind of secondary striker, but also playing off either the left or the right. I would imagine the left cutting in to give you that kind of inverted inside forward type without going too stat shagger for you. He can play inside, but still he's holding the ball up and being a target man. And also then, if the ball's going in the box, you've got Chermiti and him in there, both well over 6 foot. And Skov Olsen just kind of cutting about at the back. So I think the boy looks good. I think getting the monkey off the back and getting 2 goals nice and early looks physical. And you're looking at also the set piece part of that, mate, whereby Chukwani looks decent. He's obviously, I think, did he get credited with the first goal at the weekend? His first, or was it put down as an own goal?
No, it was an own goal, mate. Aye.
So,
but then he scored in the second half.
Then, of course he did. But that's what I'm saying. His first goal, also no having the second goal being Tav's either. That was going by the post, but we'll give him the hat trick before the goalie flapped at it. But we'll give him the hat trick. So mate, the boy Nadiri to me looks like your good old-fashioned British centre forward, and I don't think that you can take too much away from him that it was against Queen's Park, because I think if a striker's got striker's instincts, he'll have them whether you're playing against Celtic, Aberdeen, Hearts, Motherwell, Queen's Park, or the women's team. It doesn't matter. They striking instincts and they runs about the box. None of that changes. And it looks good enough to cause havoc when he's in there.
So obviously you've went in and said that you fancy Chermiti to start on the left-hand side, mate. But I think that the sort of refreshing thing is the options that we have. I know I spoke about last week that I fancied trying Ant-Man on the left-hand side, and I'm glad to say that it's definitely proved fruitful in the sort of two sort of times that we've seen it since. And again, mate, I think if you watched his post-match interview for the game, he looked confident. He said that he doesn't mind which side he plays. He thinks that he just had to go over his injury, but he's feeling good within himself now. And confidence is a funny thing in football, and that's kind of where I'm sort of thinking that I would start with him, because I like to go with players that are confident and hungry. He looked to sort of build a good partnership there with Romans in the first half. I think when you build these partnerships, they strengthen over time. And I agree with you. I think that Gassama is more of an impact player. And when teams are tiring in the second half and he's coming on with his pace running at them, that's probably the best time to sort of utilise him, because, as you say, he drifts in and out of games. But where do you sort of sitting with your view on Ant-Man? I know you would start Chermiti, Ross, but is the boy done enough to even give the manager food for thought going forward? Easy for me to say.
I think Ant-Man will start tomorrow, mate. I think Danny Rule will start him. I'm just talking from my point of view. I think Chermiti would offer you something, because I think that's been the glory of Chermiti, bar the Old Firm game, is his hold up, his pressing, all that sort of stuff. He's not looked like scoring goals. I can concede that. But Ant-Man as well, although against a Kilmarnock team that were depleted and a Queen's Park team who are obviously nowhere near the calibre of the Motherwell team you're going to come up against. But I think Rowe will play Ant-Man, Scov Olsen. It wouldn't surprise me, Davie, if he plays Raskin. I was just basing on what I would play when we were talking earlier. I think Ant-Man plays in Danny Rowe's team, and probably right, because his own form, and maybe Chermiti, you don't want to risk him if he's had seven stitches and an Achilles injury. To me, starting a game within a week has got all the remnants of somebody just leaving one on you and busting that wide open again, to be honest.
What about Mikey Moore, mate? Obviously, he's sort of impacted games for sort of the left-hand side of the pitch, but I think he looks more deadly when he's in central. And if Motherwell are playing that way and they're building up for the back and the pivot's coming to receive the ball for the two centre-halves, that's where you want that boy sitting tomorrow night, to steal the ball, carry it, and actually hurt them. Because I think he's the only player that we've got in that team that drifts comfortably with the ball on either foot and can commit defenders. We've not got enough of that. You play an Asgard there, he just sits off them and jokeys the guy, and lets them have the ball. Whereas this boy wants to go on the ball himself and influence the game. And I just think the Mora might be the type of game, mate, that is going to suit him and his characteristics and can get us a foothold in actually, hurting Motherwell the Mora.
Mate, I would have Mikey Moore playing in the 10 every game. I know that it's a lot to ask of an 18-year-old to go and play 14 games or whatever it is for now to the end of the season, but everyone he's fit for, I would start him in that position, because I don't think that even Hearts or Celtic are that good that we should be giving up an attacking threat like Mikey Moore to go a flat 3 in there. We spoke about it before the last Old Firm game, the whole giving up at that point it was Asgard to go and just sit on Callum McGregor. I don't think Callum McGregor now is the same player he was even last season. So Mikey Moore, for me, every game he's fit, I would have him starting. I would make sure we get the most use out of him as we can before he inevitably breaks all our hearts and goes back to Spurs in the summer. As you say, can take the ball in tight spaces, can take it on the half turn, gives you an out ball. If worst comes to the worst, can get you 20, 25 yards up the park when you're under pressure, because he's happy to take it and run. Everything Asgard doesn't give you, to be honest. and everything also that none of your other midfielders, if you go with a flat three, will give you either. So I think he's intelligent, his game intelligence, his positional intelligence is good. I think he's tactically disciplined, which is, as you say, what we need, because you're looking at him sitting, not to break up the play, but to be the first on the press, as you say, right into that linchpin of their midfield. But also, if Chukwani and Diamande are Raskin, as I say, for me, Danny Rule will probably play Raskin, especially after him being rested at the weekend. If they're winning second balls and the ball's breaking forward, you want Mikey Moore to be in there picking it up, because he's the one we've got that, as we said, that can pick a ball up and make something out of nothing. I don't think we've got any other player that can do that, who's quite comfortable sitting in that position.
Well, I mean, it certainly interested me, and obviously you touched on the manager, and today was presented with the January Manager of the Month award, which is his first one of the season, despite the fact that he's managed to claw back a 14-point deficit, a gap that was as big as any Aluko's forehead, which is now down to 3 points, mate. So I guess that we have to take that in its stride and say that it's a job well done, mate. And I get that we dropped points the first game in February when we drew at Easter Road. But on the whole, since the managers took over domestically, and the fact that he's been backed, he's identified players that he trusts. We haven't just went shopping to the Championship again. Now we're starting to see that he's imposing his own philosophy on the team in an attacking sense, now that he's got the right sort of bodies to facilitate that. What is there to say about the manager? Obviously, it all counts for nothing if you don't win these two games, which is, I suppose, the sort of devil's advocate of the situation.
I'm going to hark on to Chris Bett again here, mate, because again, I really like Chris. I think he talks a lot of sense, and he said that. See, when Danny Rule came in and we were 14 points behind and blah, 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 I want us to be talking now about a blank slate. Win all your games for now at the end of the season. I don't want us to be harking back to it, but when Danny came in, we were 14 points behind and blah, blah. Because history tells us, mate, if you give this Rangers team a bit of rope, they'll hang themselves, because they'll say, oh, but we done so well. We done it with Clement when he pulled back a massive lead. Danny Rule has come in and been pragmatic up to the point where he's got his points winning ugly. He's now been back to the tune of 17, 18 million, was it, in the January transfer window, which is, again, substantially more than any other club in the league have spent all season. So I don't want us to get to the end of the season, lose the league by 3 points and hark back to, but we were 14 points behind at one point. For me, it's a clean break. We've come out the January window. He's had as much as most Rangers managers have had in a summer transfer window to spend. We're 3 points off Hearts. We can make that up midweek, or at the weekend, rather. No, next midweek, next Wednesday. Am I right in saying that? Tuesday, Wednesday, Sunday next week.
What's that?
Hearts game. When do we play Hearts?
Hearts Sunday, mate.
Weekend. Mate, I'm getting my days all mixed up. I was right the first time. So we've got a chance. More or less, you're playing a 13 or a 14 game season, starting afresh. For me, he's got the players in he wanted. He's been back to the hilt, and it's now a case of, can we go and win this league? And JD touched on it when he was on with us a couple of weeks ago, that we're at the stage now where if we don't win the league, we'll be raging. And when he came in, we never thought we had a chance. So is that through him getting results? 100%. Is it also through Hearts naturally, as everybody suspected, are they going to go through big unbeaten runs? And there was always going to close the gap on Hearts. And Celtic went for the Wilfred Nancy experiment. So it's all worked in our favour. Danny Rule's had a big part to play in that by being pragmatic. but now he's went and got his own players. So I want to see him building on that, and I want to see his style of football coming in now, and I want us to stop scraping through games and having to go to the corner 85 minutes in because we've got a 1-0 lead or Livingston or Dundee. I want to see he's going and being clinical now, Davie. So let's see how it looks.
Let's touch on the point that you brought up that JD said here 2 weeks ago, mate. So see if we don't have 2 victories this week, mate, would you say that the likeliness of us winning the league is slim to nothing? And 2, if he doesn't win the league, will it be leaving question marks over his position, or does he get next year regardless? I know I'm not saying, we must sack the manager or whatever if he doesn't win it, but Rangers managers are here to win things, and he's been backed, as you said, in the January window, better than most Rangers managers here to sort of produce and go and, fight for this title. Having been for sort of no man's land to now, punching, in amongst it, has he really got to go and win it for you now, mate?
I would be a hypocrite if I said no, Davie, because for the last 3 or 4 years, I've been saying Celtic have spent considerably more than us on transfers and wages, and therefore they should be winning the league. So I'd be a hypocrite if I said we've spent the guts of 50 million this year, whereas Celtic have spent buttons compared to us. They've got a fan revolt on. They're where we were. They're where we've been for the last X amount of seasons. The difference is they've put their foot on our necks and they've went and won things. So I think if we don't win the league this season, there is a big significant part of the support who will say, aye, but he started off 14 points behind, because that sounds like a better narrative than Hearts naturally haven't got the squad depth and or the talent, the wage budget, the skills, the players to keep that run going for the full season, and Celtic employed Wilfred Nancy. So he'll get next season. I think he'll do well for us next season, but I do think that the expectation between everybody, and I know listening to the Rangers review and listening to 4 lads and people who up until like kind of last week when Hearts lost, didn't really want to concede that we were in a title race. We're quite happy flying under the radar and the pressure wasn't on us. As I say, you win your 2 games this week, you go top of the league. So there's no excuse in it now. And also, as I say, he's been backed with the players they wanted. They went 2 million above what they were asking for Nadiri to get him now. So for me, the expectation is we need to go and win the league. I think he's under pressure of the sack, but there'll be people like myself who would question how have we not won the league when you went and got what you wanted at this point. When, as I say, Celtic even know that what's actually bringing Celtic fans together is the fact that they're going to have 10,000 fans at Ibrox, as if you've not just pulled their pants down a couple of weeks ago in front of 55,000 of their fans in their own shit tip. So what difference does 10,000 at Ibrox make? But that's what's bringing them together. The thought that they're getting 1 hour on Rangers because they're going to get the full Broom loan. Apart from that, they're all infighting and hate each other, hate the board, hate this, hate that. So, mate, they're not in a good place. I would like to think that Hearts, being as depleted as they are, with injuries to more or less their 2 best players, that the expectation in my head certainly is we need to go and win the league this year.
Now, you touch on an interesting point, mate. We have drew them in the quarter-final of the Cup at Ibrox. So how do you see that, mate, in terms of the 2 games in a week? I always think back to the 10 in a row season when we should have won 10 in a row and we didn't, and we beat them in the 2 massive games that mattered, the quarter-final of the Cup, and obviously when George Albert scored 2 almost identical goals week after week, and Jonas Tern scored a belter in the league game at Ibrox, an absolute peachy goal. Go and see it on YouTube if you haven't. But this is almost the chance where, yes, it propels your season, but it gives you a chance to end theirs. And that's the mentality that you've got to adopt. Now, let's just take that point on its own merit, Ross. Do you think we've got the characters there, a management team there, and a group of players there that could achieve that?
Yes. See, for me, the Old Firm games will take care of themselves, Davie, as they have. Last season, they couldn't really put a glove on us, barring a cup final in which we should have had a penalty in the last minute. It's games against your Motherwells and earlier on in the season, again, Dundees and Livingstons, and it's they kind of games that cost us. It's the games that cost us last season, and it's the games that will cost us again, because I don't think that as a club we go to Parkhead or we play against Celtic and fear them now. I think that we've got the mentality that they're well beatable. It's mere complacency in our team that I think is our issue. And also on the back end of that, as a good friend of the show, Alexander's saying, we've always had the excuse of big, long European runs, and we are playing Thursday, Sunday. They're playing Saturday. They're getting their points on the board, and the pressure's on us to chase them. So this year, that's the opposite way about. So they've got a fixture congestion list that we should be taking advantage of. The run of games they've got run about that doubleheader with us is, there's no easy games in that. I think are they away in Stuttgart on the Thursday night, then play us on the Sunday. Am I right?
And then they play Aberdeen and then at Pittodrie and then us again. I'm sure that's the run of 4 games.
So that's not a 4-game run that's conducive to good performances at the weekend, is it? It's not as if they're playing St Mirren and Falkirk in midweek games where you're only travelling an hour down the road. Even the games up at Aberdeen that you're away overnight, the night before, you're not really getting training time in, you're not really getting recovery sessions. So, Davie, for me, this year, the excuses are gone. From now on, you're playing essentially, is it 13 or 14 league games we've got left? You're starting afresh. Everybody's on the same points for me. I get it, Hearts are a wee bit ahead. And for me, the fortune is in our favour because we don't have the congested league and cup games. We have a team that's just had a fresh injection of nearly £20 million on it. We are the team that's in the ascendancy. And I don't think there can be any excuses for no winning it under those circumstances, because they're the kind of circumstances that we as a fan base have used as a pacifier for ourselves when we've been going on Europa League runs but no winning shiny things at home, and using that as an excuse to say, oh, but we had a really bad run of games and we get beat there because we were playing in Europe and 8-4. We done it that last couple of weeks ago with Hibs. Oh, we ran our guts out against Porto in what was essentially a meaningless game, and then we looked lackadaisical at the weekend and dropped points against Hibs. So that stops. We're the team that should be fresh. We're the team that's had the new injection of players that the manager wanted worth a few quid. So therefore, it's up to us to go and do it, mate. It's all in our hands.
Where do you stand on the allocation round? Because obviously they can only request up to 20%. It doesn't mean to say that we have to give them 20%. And we've got season ticket holders that are in that area. And I think our chairman will look after our own in that regard. So they can ask all they want. It doesn't mean that they're going to get. And see, to be honest with you, mate, I grew up all my days with them getting the Broomlin. And I know folks say, oh, the atmosphere and all the rest of it. And see, now, mate, I'd rather our fans were there, because the allocation isn't proportionate. See, because they've got the bigger stadiums, see 7,500 at base stadiums, they've still got 10,000 more home fans than what we have. So 7,500 bears at Parkhead doesn't have the same impact as what them and the Broomlin does. So, mate, I look to minimise them. I don't want to hear them. I want them to be kept quiet. I'm only interested in watching my team and us, beating them. You know what I mean? And I just couldn't give a monkeys about what level, allocation that they're shouting for. To me, they're no entitled to it, and I don't want to go back to the old days, mate. I'm much more happy the way it is now, mate, and I'd much more that Rangers fans got to see them get pumped rather than their own fans.
I've spoken about this before. The biggest issue you've got for me with the allocations, the bigger allocations, is us stuck up in a corner and them being right behind, in this instance, Jack Butland's goal. So, play out the situation. If there's a penalty, if Celtic get a penalty in an Old Firm game, if they're playing at home, their fans are behind both goalkeepers' goals, right? So if we get a penalty at Parkhead, we are playing into the boos and the scarves and the off-putting and the atmosphere behind the goals. If we then play them at Ibrox, there's a 50% chance that we're going to be playing against that in our own home place. When Jack Butland's taking kickouts, if Jack Butland's get shots, he's got a wall of them behind him, putting him off. And you can tell me, oh, he's a professional football player. I played at junior football in front of a couple of hundred people, and see if you've got folk behind your goals giving you all game, it can affect your confidence. They can rile you up. They can get under your skin. So see if you gave them 7,000 up in a corner of the club deck or something like that, up out the road, put a net there so they can't throw stuff down on the bears. Maybe then. But for me, it's the prominent position. You're disadvantaging yourself if you get a penalty, if James Tavernier's hitting a penalty, or if Jack Butland's in goals on the receiving end of a penalty. Essentially, in 2 games, you're giving them the advantage of that 3 times out of 4, and I don't agree with that. That's the part of it. I know it's, you couldn't take getting beaten or celebrating in your stand and all that. For me, it's nothing to do with that, because the first talk of allocations getting cut was after Ryan Kent ran by them, then the old fucking gun salute, and they took the huff and wanted a criminal inquiry into it. So that, to me, is one of the issues. But for me, it's about placement and advantage, and your home advantage. You're giving up a good proportion of that by giving them a full stand in our stadium, and that's where I've got the issue with it.
So obviously, mate, this will be the only pod that we'll do prior to Sunday. So we've spoke about sort of the Mora night, how we think it will go. We spoke about the impact that players have made for Sunday. But how do you see us, or what should we tweak then if we say that is the way we want to play against Motherwell? How do we then adapt to play against Hearts at home at Ibrox, mate? Because obviously they are, and I'm sure everybody in the comments that I can see has kept one eye on this game. They still look a depleted team at the minute. So is it the same Hearts that came to Ibrox earlier on in the season, or that we faced at Tynecastle, mate, that they're sort of no looking as fresh as they did earlier on in the campaign, are they?
Mate, Hearts had 2 players that I think are good enough to come and play for Rangers, and both of them are long-term injured. So that's going to affect it. Tell a lie, the boy Braga could maybe play at Rangers, I would say, maybe. But Shankland and Devlin are 2 players I think could play for Rangers. They're no playing. For me, it's all about, back to that, we go and play our game now. We don't try and soak up pressure, keep the 0 and then hope for a Manny Fernandez header at the back post. So I'm of the thing that we pick the way we want to play, the way Danny Rule wants to play. He's went and got his players in to play the way he wants to play. So let's go and play it. Let's go, as the song says, let's fear no foe. Let's go and do what we want to do and take the game to teams rather than worrying about, let them worry about us rather than us worrying about what they can offer. And that's the way, that would be my way of looking at it for the rest of the season.
So if you're saying that you play Sterling at right back the Mora night, does that mean that Tav comes back in at right back for you on Sunday? Or do you play Sterling again? Can he go 290 minutes, mate? Because I don't think he can.
Well, what kind of training intensity is he training at? They train for an hour and a half a day. So, and I'd imagine he does more running and more drills and stuff at training than he will. Mate, see Sterling for me, I've spoke about this on here before, Davie. I want him to just be a right back. I don't see now. We don't need them bombing it up and down the line. We don't need them playing at centre mid a game and then playing at centre half a game, and then just put him in at right back and allow him to grow into the position as a Rangers player with the same stress on his body every week. No changing positions where he's expected to go box to box and cover players, and just let him play it right back. And I don't think that playing 2 games at right back in the SPFL for Rangers should be too much for him. If it is, then we've got issues, and he shouldn't be at Rangers, because you're looking at James Tavernier being out at the end of the season and folk talking about no renewing his contract. So see if Sterling can't play 2 games in a week, then he's no use to Rangers, and you'd be as well getting shot at him. Adrenaline should get you through these games, Davie. Sorry to butt in, but adrenaline
you're
and
right.
the fact you're in a title charge should get you through these kind of games.
So, mate, the last thing that I wanted to touch on was in regards to the left-back position. And I think Tor Romans has come in and looked really impressive, mate, in terms of, as we touched on last week, physicality, touch, runs off the ball, running with the ball, delivery. But does it do a disservice to Jayden Magoma? Because was he at the point that Tor Romans has come into the side, arguably our most improved player of the season? Has that boy still got a part to play going forward, or should he only come in really when Romans isn't available, mate?
Well, you're gonna find that out tomorrow, aren't you? Because you're gonna have to tomorrow. I would imagine you're gonna see what the defensive side of Tor Romans looks like, because we've not seen that yet. Now, by all accounts, the stats and the data say that he's good. Paul McCorrickle reading my mind there. You're going to see what he's like one-to-one defending. If it comes to it and he's maybe not as good, then maybe it's back to that whole Tav and Dujon thing, whereby do you want your fullback to be a fullback, or do you want them to offer something up front? I think personally, Tor Romans getting forward and your right back just playing as a right back, and if they need to shift into the free when defending, they can all move over one. Suits. Again, I'm interested to know a bit more. I should really have done some research, David, but I've no bothered my arse about what this 4-2-2-2 Red Bull style formation actually looks like in principle. What the defensive shape and stuff of that looks like. But for me, Tor Romans has done enough to earn the jersey. He's our player, more to the point. Jayden Magoma has done well. I don't think he's been as good as he could have been. But in a title race, there's no room for, you didn't really deserve that, son. If you've got a better player, especially if you own that player, he plays ahead of the lone player, and that's just the unfortunate nature for Jayden Magoma of playing for a club that's pushing for a league title and being on loan. If he was your aim player, would you nurture him and make sure he got minutes? 100%. But when you're nurturing him for somebody else and he's going to be away at the end of the season, for me, you play the best you can.
And I think that is a good place to end things for tonight, Ross. Just before we go, how do you see it going this week? Do you expect 2 victories? And do you think we'll get 2 victories, mate?
I think, yeah, I definitely expect 2 victories. I think we'll get 2 victories, mate. I think we'll win 2-0 tomorrow night. And I think we'll potentially win 2-0 against Hearts at the weekend.
I'm going a 4-2 thriller tomorrow night, mate. Both teams to score and a red card as well, mate. I fancy that. I think Rangers 4-2 tomorrow night, and I think we'll beat Hearts. I think we'll beat Hearts 3-0 at the weekend, mate.
They don't concede a lot of goals at home. Mate, as I've said before on here, their goalie's one I would definitely be looking at next season. The boy Ward at Motherwell, I would be having a look at, because he's a very good shot stopper, and he also starts off a lot of their play. He essentially becomes a third centre half and lets the other 2 push up. He plays a sweeper, a proper sweeper keeper. I don't know if he's on loan at them, Davie. I'm not sure. I would imagine he probably
I think he's
is.
their player, mate. I think he's their player.
Is he theirs? I
think so, mate.
Know. I just took it. He might be one of the ones that's maybe English Championship or something because he's very good. On Paul's, I've actually played against Socky Juniors when I played with Yoker, so I have heard of them and played against them. So I don't see a big high scoring game, mate. I'd love us to score 4, to be honest, but I just think it'll be tight tomorrow. Maybe a goal for a set piece, maybe a Fernandez Nadiri header, and then when they open up and come for us late on, maybe nick another one on the counter.
Well, Mega makes a fair point that we are an imposing team off the ball, and it's no often that we've said domestically that we look a bigger team than the opposition, and long may that continue. Ross, as always, mate, thanks very much for your company, mate. Thoroughly enjoyed that.
Mate, as always, it's an absolute pleasure. And how quick does the time pass by when it's fun and no moans and groans in it? I think as a support, we should get used to letting the good times roll and enjoying talking about the club when no everything's a drag, mate. So the first few months of this podcast, everything was a bit of a drag, wasn't it? So it's good to be excited. It's good to be looking forward to watching your team, and it's good to have expectation, actual, real, tangible expectations that this team could go on and win a league this year.
Absolutely, and let's hope that Hibs sneak a wee cheeky winner in the dying embers of that game. So just before we go, it just leaves me to say it's good night from him, and it's good night from me. Good night.